Hey, what's up folks? This is Gray here, and we're going to pick up where we left off last week or last Monday on National Preparedness Month, where we talked about combustion. This week we're going to talk about cordage. Now, some people underestimate cordage and the different types of cordage that we put in our preparedness kits and whatnot. Things from like Bankline, Paracord, rope. Some people also use fishing line, different types of things like that. So we're going to talk about the most common three types, and you might learn something. So stay tuned as we get into this video. All right, so let's discuss rope real quick. So, there's all different types of rope that you can get. This is kind of a nylon-based kind of rope that I have here. I'm not going to tear it apart. I got it nice and wrapped neatly, but you guys can get the gist of, what rope is. Now, what would I use rope for outside of, let's say, paracord or bankline? It's simply put that this would be something if I was going to be doing some rappelling or something that required this kind of heavy-duty type of rope. Because I don't know, 550 paracord is great, 550 meaning 550 pounds of tensile strength that it has due to the 7 strands and whatnot, but rope, I don't think I've ever seen anybody try to rappel with paracord. So you can see if you're going to be doing any type of rappelling or mountain climbing and stuff like that, rope can come in beneficial. And there's so many other different things that you can use rope for, but I figure I really don't need to go too deep into rope itself, being that it's something that's commonplace with most folks. Now, people might have different types of rope, and that's again where I like to ask you, the viewers, is what types of ropes do you use and do you keep in your home and what you use them for. But all in all, rope is going to be one of those things that I keep in my pack. But as you can see, the big difference with rope, paracord, and bankline is, let's start with the rope. The rope is huge. It's massive. It takes up a lot of space. I don't know how much rope that you're going to carry. If this is like 50 foot, 25 feet, 100 feet, depending on where you go, that takes up a lot of space and a lot of weight. So you can see if you have something particular in mind that you're going to be using this for, then yes, it might make sense. If you're going to be doing, again, like I said, if you're out in the mountains and stuff like that, if you're worried about some sort of situation arising where you're going to need rope to possibly lift someone out of a hole or some situation like that, this can be truly beneficial. But again, the size and the weight, like I said, it all depends on what you're going to be using this for. But rope is one of those things that I feel that everybody should have at least some form of in their preparedness gear and whatnot. So we're going to go from this and we're going to jump into paracord. All right, so the next thing that we're going to jump into, like I said, is paracord. Grey's always does everything in excess, and as you can see, this is a big spool of paracord. And we're going to get up close and personal because we're going to look at the paracord in regards to paracord versus the bankline and the main differences between those two, because those are going to be your smallest compact that most people are going to probably keep in their bag outside of rope for the purposes that I said that it would be intended to use for. So that being said, I'm going to go over this real quick. This is 550 paracord. You can buy spools of it like this. Some people just buy little different types of paracord. Also, there's like fire cord, there's 750 paracord, there's all different types of paracord as well. I use paracord for a lot of different things, but we should get into that once we get into the bankline versus paracord section there, so we can kind of compare the two and what they're best used for in regards to having these in a bug out bag. But most people, I was going to say, are probably familiar with paracord because people wrap this around their, let's say, their machetes, their knives, their axes, their bracelets. They make all kinds of different things out of them. And one I think is, I like the 7 strands inside of this paracord thing. And the reason being is because if you need to make netting per se, let's say if you're trying to make a net, you're stuck out in the wilderness or the wilderness, and you're trying to make some sort of netting, you can take this part, you got 7 strands, and you can build yourself a net to use the paracord for, other than running ridge lines and stuff like that. I mean, you can use bank line for that as well, because bank lines has a tendency to hold knots better than something like this, but it all depends on your knot skills or your knot creating skills and whatnot. But all in all, paracord is probably one of those essentials, and like I said, we're going to go ahead and pull the bank line, talk about that real quick, and then we'll get into a comparison of the two, of paracord versus bank line. All right, so here we got the Bankline. Bankline, you can see, is very compact. And what I have here, this is going to be braided Bankline. And like I said, we'll get close up to this here so you guys can see the difference. I don't have, well, I pretty much forgot to bring my twisted bank line to kind of show you the difference between those two, but we can discuss that. What I like about the braided bank line is that it's like when you tie a knot, that knot's pretty much solid and it's going to stay there. This is tarred. I don't know if you guys have heard that term before. Some of you folks out there who are familiar with bank line probably know what they mean by tarred bank line. Speaking of which, I'll try to put the links down below in regards to the Paracord and Bankline and stuff that I use if you care to check them out. I think it'll be Amazon links or something like that, because it's the easiest place to find some of that stuff. You can use other sources that you prefer to if you have a special place that you get your Bankline or Paracord from, more trusted sources per se or whatnot. But a lot of companies will use Amazon as a kind of a drop ship kind of pass-through situation. Anyways, Bankline in itself, what I like about it is I can use this for something more along the lines of, like I said, things with knots. But basically, bank line basically comes from when people used to string, they'll get a bunch of bank line, they'll run hooks, and they'll do things like, set it out on a bank to catch a bunch of different fish because it's super strong. And I'll go into the specs of it. I want to say it's 350, 360, somewhere around there. And someone says, well, Paracord's 550, it has a lot stronger, but this is a lot lighter. And if I wanted to, I could take this braided bank line and braid two together, and then I'm up to around almost 750 or roughly around there, you know what I mean, give or take. But also, like I said, it makes great for fishing. What else would I use this for? Knot tying, fishing. Oh, one thing I want to say is, I think it's here in my pocket. Let me double check. I think I brought it with me. If you're going to do if you're going to repair your tents, if you're going to repair your bags, if you're going to do that type of things like that, do some heavy sewing, let's say tarps and whatnot, outside of using duct tape, this makes a great thing. But the thing is you want to make sure that you have the right needles for sewing that. And what I would suggest, everyone, this is my favorite company. They give you an awesome thing. It's called Sailmaker's Needles. I'm going to try to get this close to the camera. Hopefully it'll focus on that. But this, by far, if you're going to get this and you want to add something like this in your pack, you might want to have the two hand in hand. So this here, I don't know if I can show that there. That is the brand that I use for my needles, or sewing needles. Again, like I said, it's Sailmaker's needles. They're just a lot more robust. They have bigger eyelets. It's easier to feed the bank line through there. But that being said, I wouldn't use the braided for that. I would use the twisted for that, because you can kind of phrase apart, and you can kind of use those thinner versions of that to make those repairs. This is a lot harder to tear apart, but it doesn't fray. So you can see how there's some pros and cons to everything. But having these two together, if you have the twisted and these needles here, you're in a good spot for making repairs, for fishing, and so on and so forth. All right, so let's get into the comparison of Paracord and Bankline and kind of get up close and see how they compare to each other. All right, folks, so this is basically, we got our Bankline here. This is our braided Bankline, and then we have our Paracord. So to kind of give you a couple ideas of the difference between the two, this one is basically 320 pounds of tensile strength versus 550 pounds of tensile strength. You can see the width of this stuff. This is about 2.1 millimeters versus 4 millimeters. And if you're looking at a weight difference, so let's say you wanted a 1/4 pound of each per length, right? So at a 1/4 pound weight, you would probably get roughly about 56 feet here and about 138 feet here. So you can put more of this in your bag versus this than you can if you're looking at weight issues and whatnot. Also, this will cost you about 5 cents per foot versus 12 cents per foot. So you can see you can save money there as well. So what about when we look at water? If you're going to be being around water, you're out in the wilderness, rain, ponds, lakes, whatever you're going to be doing to, there is a difference between this material as well. This repels water, and Paracord will absorb water. So those are two big differences right there as well. Now, also, if you're looking at like the way that you can make knots and stuff like that, this is an excellent knot making material, or cordage, versus this is good. It's just not as good as this. The way this tarred stuff works, it just holds a lot better. Last not all, some people may be looking at UV resistance or whatnot. Basically, this has a really excellent rate of UV resistance, a good versus an okay UV resistance. So if this is something that's going to be out in the sun a lot, depending on where you're using it at, if you're out in the water or whatnot, that's going to be some key major differences in this. So let's get up close. Let's cut some of this stuff and look at the differences at them real close. Okay, so as you can see here, this has 7 strands that are inside this paracord. Now there's other different types of paracord that might have, let's say, a tinder and some other options in there, but this is your standard 550 paracord. And like I said, I'm going to try to get this up close to the camera, see if it'll focus in on it. And as you can see, that is braided there. So let me show you an example of the braid. So if I was to take this here, let me get my knife. Let's see if I can cut this. And I cut this. If you notice, when I cut it here, it doesn't really fray. It doesn't have, you can mess with this a lot and stuff like that, and it's not going to fray on you too bad because it has that tar on there. So when you make a knot with this stuff like that, it's very durable. Very, very tight and very durable. Those are just some of the key differences. And like I said, if I wish I would have brought my twisted, because then I could show you some things like other uses that you can use for the Bankline itself. I'll kind of give you an idea real quick. So again, like for the Bankline itself, if you have the twisted versus the braided, like I said, you can use that for stuff like sewing, you know, tarps, sails, basically, your bags, and all different kinds of things like that. Now, some people may have like a sewing kit that looks something like that, which is a great sewing kit, but it's not really made for stuff like this. So I would definitely go with something more along that lines. And again, like I said, that's what I use itself. Also, let's say if you were going to use like a little fishing kit or something like that, and let's say you happen to use all your fishing line inside a fishing kit like this, you know, a little compact fishing kit that you might have in your bag, something I just happened to grab real quick, you can take some of the twisted, split that apart and use that for fishing line because, again, the tensile strength is very good. All right, folks, so like I said, it's not one of those things that, you know, is like super, I don't know, maybe some folks are intrigued by cordage as I am. I'm intrigued by all things gear. I'm a gear junkie, if you probably haven't noticed, in regards to all different types of gear. But I hope that some of you may have learned something. Maybe I missed a few things going over some of the specs and specifications and what uses you can use these things for. And that's why I always like to read your guys' comments and see your interaction down below. On if you have Bankline, what you use it for. If you have Paracord, what do you use it for? Do you prefer Bankline over Paracord? Do you have a little bit of both? Do you carry rope? Do you live in a mountainous area where rope is something important to you that you need to carry in your pack? Again, I like to kind of get that feedback from you guys. And honestly, if you guys want to see more in regards to cordage and applications, let's say you want me to take some Bankline and use it for fishing. If you want me to take some Paracord and use it for a ridge line, you want to learn more about knots, which I know is probably not the most intriguing thing for most, but some of you folks out there like to learn this type of material out there, or at least my perspective on what I know and how I know and that kind of stuff like that, and maybe you can benefit from that. So hopefully, like again, it's National Preparedness Month and I'm concentrating on the 5 C's. I think when we get to cutting tools, you guys will probably really enjoy that video because who doesn't like knives, saws, and axes and stuff like that? Being that you watch this video all the way to the end, remember folks, tomorrow I'll have special guests, Becky and Eric from Nutrient Survival, joining me on the live stream at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you never know what might happen when Becky's on the channel. All right, folks, I want you to stay out there, stay safe, please. Remember, you're not alone. This is GreyMan. I'm out. See you guys in a rebound. God bless.